And like I said, we really appreciate everybody coming down. And commissioners, thank you for being here. And we will go ahead and get started. And the first item up is item B, which is the adoption of the agenda. And commissioners, that was sent out earlier to you. Is there a motion to adopt? There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. Next is item C, which is the approval of the November 14th, 2024 minutes. Those were also released earlier, and we'll need a motion to adopt the minutes. Is there a motion? Motion, second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the minutes are adopted. Next is the recognition of the council members, item D. And I did see Councilmember Webb is back. Councilmember Webb, you want to do it now or later? Later? Oh, come on up. Why don't you do it now? Welcome. Appreciate you coming in. We'll get the microphone on for you. Thank you for coming down. Appreciate it. And welcome. Oh, it's not on yet. Hold on.
There we go. Okay, so I'm here to speak on the Plum Street and Atlantic Avenue. And just to let y'all know that we are trying to clean my area up over there. And we're trying to get the zoning from industrial over to residential. They had already done some of the area, but they didn't do the whole area. So now we're going back and I'm asking for the whole area. And it's not a very nice area, but we're going to make it single family homes and 500 and below. Any questions?
Thank you, Council Lady. And that's item, just commissioners, that's item number 1 on the agenda. Thank you
I didn't realize I was first. Thank you.
You're first.
I didn't realize that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I didn't see any other council members, I don't believe. Oh, yes, no, we have one more council. Council Lady, do you want to go now or do you want to wait? She wants to wait. Okay. Thank you, Council Lady. All right, so that leads us to item E, which is items for deferral or withdrawal. And I believe that Ms. Welch is going to take us through that.
Thank you. Okay. Our items for deferral withdrawal tonight, starting on page 3 of your agenda. Under letter H, item number 2, 2024 SP 003001 Burkett Corner, staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. On page 4 of your agenda, item number 3, 2024 SP 036001. Oh, thank you. 001832 West Trinity, staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. Item number 4, 2024 SP 037001 3993 Dickerson Pike Multifamily, staff recommendation to defer indefinitely. Item number 5, 2024 SP 039001 Brentwood Chase 3, staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. Item number 6, 2024 SP 043001 1265 McCavick SP, staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. Item number 7, 2024 SP 004001 2151 Mile, staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. On page 5 of your agenda, item number 11, 2022 S 220001 3862 Hudson Avenue, staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. Item number 12, 2024 S 115001 Monroe Park Phase 1, staff recommendation to defer to the February 13th meeting. On page 6 of your agenda, item number 13, 2024 S 134001 102 Scenic View Road, staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. Item number 14, 2024 S 139001 Schuler Clarksville Highway, staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. Item number 15, 2024 S 142001 Cane Ridge Farms South, staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. Item number 17, 2024 DTC 014002, 600 4th Avenue South. Staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. On page 7 of your agenda, item number 18, 2024 Z069 PR001. Staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. Item number 21, 2024 SP 049001, 5642 Valley View SP. Staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. On page 8 of your agenda, item number 24, 2024 SP 057001, 2908 12th Ave South. Staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. Item number 25, 2024 SP 060001, 1609 4th Ave North. Staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. Item number 26, 2024 SP 063001, 866 Youngs Lane. Staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. Item number 27, 2024 S 186001. Staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. On page 9 of your agenda, item number 28, 2024 S 187001. Chandler Reserve Phase 6. Staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting. And that concludes our withdrawal or deferrals.
Thank you. And did I hear item 19, or did I not hear item 19?
No.
No, item 19. Thank you.
Wait, 19.
Yes.
Okay. Should I read it?
Yes.
Okay. Item number 19 on page 7 of the agenda, 2024 CP 012001, Southeast Community Plan Amendment. Step to defer? January? Staff recommendation to defer to the January 9th meeting.
Thank you, Maddie. Very good job.
That's okay.
And so, commissioners and Maddie, make sure that I get these correct. We'll go slow. So all of the items for deferral or withdrawal are the following. Items number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 21, 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, commissioners, you've heard the items for deferral withdrawal. Is there a motion? Motion? Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and those items are deferred or withdrawn. All right, here we go. We're on item F, and Ms. Welch, take us through the consent agenda.
Items on our tentative consent agenda tonight will be read aloud to determine if there is opposition present. If there is opposition present, please raise your hand, and these items will be taken off of the tentative consent agenda and will be placed on the agenda to be presented in the order in which they are listed. If no opposition is present, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. As noticed to the public, items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time, and no individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. So starting on page 3 of your agenda, item number 1, 2024 CP 004001, Madison Community Plan Amendment. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the consent agenda. On page 5 of your agenda, item number 8, 2024 SP 045001 4144 Maxwell Road Residential. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the consent agenda. Item number 9, 2024 SP 052001 Bordeaux Homes. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the agenda to be heard. Item number 10, 2024 TSO 001001 Buena Vista two-story overlay. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be on the consent agenda. On page 6 of your agenda, item number 16, 10971P001 3620 Anderson Road Amendment. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the consent agenda. On page 7 of your agenda, item number 20, 2024 Z02. What do you mean? Oh, okay. Okay.
Sorry, as part of our new process for text amendments, there will always be a presentation and a public hearing. And so that one cannot be on consent based on our new process.
Okay.
That's my bad.
Item number 22, 2024 SP 050001 360 Huron Drive. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the consent agenda. On page 8 of your agenda, item number 23, 2024 SP 054001, 3rd and Madison SP. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the agenda to be heard. On page 9 of your agenda, item number 29, 46-83P006, Metropolitan Airport Center, revision and final. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the consent agenda. Item number 30, 2024 Z110PR001. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the consent agenda. Item number 31, 2024 Z116PR001. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the consent agenda. Item number 32, 2024 Z123PR001. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the consent agenda. Item number 33, 2024 Z127PR001. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the consent agenda. On page 10 of your agenda, item number 34, 2024 Z130PR001. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the consent agenda. Item number 35, 2024 Z132PR001. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the agenda to be heard. Item number 36, 2024 Z133PR001. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the agenda to be heard. Item number 37, 2024 Z134PR001. Is there anyone here in opposition of this item? This item will be placed on the consent agenda. Okay. I will now run through all of our items on the consent agenda with their full captions as legal information. As information for our audience, if you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Planning Commission today, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of entry of the Planning Commission's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised you should contact independent legal counsel. So starting on page 3 of your agenda, item number 1, 2024 CP004001, Madison Community Plan Amendment. This is a request to amend the Madison Community Plan by changing community character policy from district industrial to urban neighborhood evolving for properties located along Atlantic Avenue and Plum Street, zoned IR. Staff's recommendation is to approve. On page 5 of your agenda, item number 8, 2024 SP045001, 4144 Maxwell Road Residential. This is a request to rezone from AR2A to SP zoning for properties located at 4316 Laverne Couchville Pike and 4144 Maxwell Road to permit 46 single-family lots. Staff's recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. Item number 10, 2024 TSO001001, the Buena Vista two-story overlay. This is a request to apply a two-story overlay district for various properties located east of Tucker Road and southeast of West Hamilton Avenue. Staff's recommendation is to disapprove as submitted and approve with the substitute ordinance. On page 6 of your agenda, item number 16, 10971P001. This is 3620 Anderson Road Amendment, which is a request to amend a planned unit development overlay district on a property located at 3620 Anderson Road, zoned R10, and within a planned unit development overlay district to modify the permitted uses. Staff's recommendation is to approve with conditions. On page 7 of your agenda, item number 22, 2024 SP050001, 361 Huron Drive. This is a request to rezone from IWD to SP zoning for property located at 361 Huron Drive to permit 350 multifamily residential units. Staff's recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. On page 9 of your agenda, item number 29, 46-83P006, Metropolitan Airport Center revision and final. This is a request to revise the preliminary plan and for a final site plan approval for a portion of a planned unit development overlay district on properties located at 2953 and 2953B Elm Hill Pike, zoned CS, to modify the uses. Staff's recommendation is to approve with conditions. Item number 30, 2024Z110PR001. This is a request to rezone from RS 7.5 to R6A zoning for property located at 412 McIver Street. Staff's recommendation is to approve. Item number 31, 2024Z116PR001. This is a request to rezone from RS5 to RM20A for property located at 34 Lucille Street. Staff's recommendation is to approve. Item number 32, 2024Z123PR001. This is a request to rezone from RS 7.5 to R8 for properties located at 354, 358, 362, and 366 Rio Vista Drive. Staff's recommendation is to approve. Item number 33, 2024Z127PR001. This is a request to rezone from RS 7.5 to R8A for property located at 800 Gwynn Drive. Staff's recommendation is to approve. On page 10 of your agenda, item number 34, 2024Z130PR001. This is a request to rezone from R20 to IR for property located at Reynolds Road. Staff's recommendation is to approve. Item number 37, 2024Z134PR001. This is a request to rezone from RS5 to R6A for property located at 2319 Foster Avenue. Staff's recommendation is to approve. And under letter I, other business, item number 39, to the contract amendment for David Klein. Item number 40, determination on public hearing for Belmead Highlands technical study. And item number 44, to accept the director's report and approve administrative items. No? I don't see a 38. She's saying there's a 38. What did I say? Mine says 39. I'll reread it. Sorry, under other business, item number 38 is the contract amendment for David Klein. Item 39 or 40, sorry, okay. It's just the item 38, the contract, sorry. That's it. I'm sorry. I have an older, okay. Yeah. Item 39, contract amendment for Laszlo Martin.
And then, Ms. Welch, items, just to get a clarification, I want to make sure we get these on there. Item number 40, determination on the public hearing for Belmead Highlands technical study. Is that correct?
That will be something that you all have to discuss and make a vote on. So that is not on consent.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was listed at the top of the agenda, but the agenda was then renumbered because it was updated. And so it is we've had about 4 different versions of the agenda today alone. And so it's sort of a constantly updating thing. Under other business, the items that should be on consent are 38, contract amendment for David Klein, 39, contract amendment for Laszlo Martin, and 44, accept the director's report and approve administrative items.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yes.
All right, commissioners. So we have, and Ms. Welch, make sure this is correct. So we have the following items are going to be passed all together on the consent agenda. And these are the following. Items number 1, 8, 10, 16, 22, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 37, 38, 39, and 44. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, commissioners, you've heard the items to adopt on the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and those items are adopted. And so hold on one second. All right, so that means for the viewing public and commissioners, we will be considering the following. Items number 9, 20, 23, 35, 36, and 40. And Lisa, on item number 20, just remind the commissioners why that particular item is on, that we're going to be hearing it but not voting on it. Because this is a new rule that we adopted a couple meetings ago.
Sure. At the October 24th meeting, you all updated, amended copies of the rules and procedures that did a few things, housekeeping, but one thing that was sort of big was to change the process by which we will consider text amendments at the Planning Commission. And essentially, we have now set up a process where a text amendment will come to you all twice. The first time, which is what this one is doing tonight, it will be on the agenda for a presentation from staff, for a public hearing, and then for discussion. And then you all would vote to defer it, the equivalent of 2 meetings, although in this case, we're in the weird time of year, but the equivalent of 4 weeks, essentially. And during that time, that will allow us to address any questions or concerns that may arise from the discussion that either comes out of the public hearing or with you all, so that we can then report back to you at the second meeting. And at that meeting, the public hearing remains closed, and you all would then vote on your recommendation to the council. This is a way that we can better allow for transparency, community input, and conversation around these complex issues.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions on that? I want to make sure everybody knew that that's what it's for. Okay, so items to be considered. Item number 9. Oh, I mean G. I'm sorry. My fault.
We just have a very brief status update on the housing and infrastructure work. We wanted to make you aware of it. Just a very short presentation, no deliberation. This is informational only.
Good evening, Commissioners. Greg Claxton with the Planning Department. I'm going to provide this update on the Housing and Infrastructure Study. This is our second briefing for y'all. We previously briefed you in March of this year, shortly after Council passed a resolution requesting the study. In brief, the Council asked Planning, NDOT codes, Water, and Historic to coordinate multiple ongoing studies and determine appropriate changes to zoning, building, fire, and life safety codes to improve housing supply, affordability, and equity. Since our briefing with you, we have been funded out of savings within the FY24 budget to bring on a consultant team. We've established regular department coordination calls. We've laid out a scope for this whole process and engaged the consultant team led by a firm called Opticos, who is a national expert in middle housing, along with a team that's mixed of national and local subconsultants. And then tonight, possibly right now, we're launching a website that will have a little bit of background on the study, as well as a longer version of this presentation. Among the studies that we're looking to coordinate for this project, one foundational one is the Unified Housing Strategy being conducted by our Housing Division. This will lay out, amongst a range of other sort of affordable housing program and operational issues, kind of a really, really detailed view of our housing market and the diverse needs that we have within the market and what kind of our growth expectations are into the future. In addition to that Unified Housing Study, Metro is getting underway with a multimodal mobility master plan, as well as an update to Parks Master Plan, Plan to Play. Those are both just getting underway, but we expect to be able to learn something from their review of existing conditions to incorporate into this process. And then Water has a number of sort of ongoing infrastructure master plans that they maintain that they're looking to coordinate with us as well. In addition to these more formal studies, we have a range of internal work that will feed into this and likely be part of our findings and recommendations. These include a transit-oriented development framework that we've undertaken with NDOT and WEGO, a review of zoning best practices and equity, kind of findings around kind of historical and current zoning patterns, and then a peer review of middle housing standards within, compared to sort of other cities in Middle Tennessee, or in Tennessee, I'm sorry. As always, when we begin thinking about the future of Nashville, our starting point is Nashville Next, the general plan. I won't do a long reminder of this, but just broadly speaking, we have a growth and preservation concept map that lays out where we would like to grow and where we would like to preserve, and then a set of guiding principles that are sort of the public's vision for like what is it they hope we have for the future of Nashville. Informed by both of these, we've laid out three main principles that are driving this process. I go into them in more detail in the video online, but at a high level, the three main themes are abundant housing, such that anyone who wants to live in Nashville should be able to find a place that meets their needs. As we plan for that housing, we need to make sure we have the necessary infrastructure in place. And that spans from sort of core water and sewer, mobility, like how we get around our neighborhoods and communities, as well as facilities and amenities like parks and libraries, grocery stores, banks, childcare, that kind of thing. And then always we want to be mindful of our distinctive communities and make sure that we're growing in a way that reflects both the distinctive character and the distinctive needs of our different neighborhoods and communities. And ultimately what we're looking to do through this, as with all of our work, is make sure that we're supporting a high quality of life for all Nashvillians. This has been a very, very brief kind of just status check for y'all. We'll have a more in-depth briefing for the commission at a work session on January 9th, where we'll again join with our housing colleagues to present the findings from the UHS, as well as give you an opportunity to talk through in detail our approach to this housing and infrastructure study. We're looking ahead to initial community engagement in February. Some of that will be a reminder on Nashville Next, some of it will be findings from UHS, and then we're looking to also begin engaging around this project in particular, with a goal of presenting initial findings to council by the end of March, and then following that up with more detailed community engagement around developing recommendations, which we hope to have by the end of June 2025. Just to give you a sense of the kind of things we anticipate providing recommendations on, we kind of see these in three main categories. One is recommended changes to the zoning code. That could include, that will include stronger design guidelines for existing zoning districts, as well as reduced barriers for housing within existing residential zoning districts. We expect that we will likely need to also bring forward new residential zoning districts or overlays that are better matched to the kinds of housing that we're not able to provide right now. Second, we do anticipate recommending changes to the zoning map, where, if at all, we make recommendations to the zoning map that are not supported by the current community character policies. We would also recommend amendments to the community plans to go along with that. And then last, we anticipate making recommendations to improve the planning process so that kind of as we continue our work into the future, we're able to be a little bit more proactive and maintain this on an ongoing basis. Across these many different recommendations, some of them we expect would be fairly straightforward. It could be adopted sometime during this process. Some of them will likely need kind of further refinement and community engagement, just to sort of set expectations. I mean, I think we're going to bring something that we think rises to the level of need that we have for housing in Nashville right now, and that's going to take probably some further community discussion and dialogue. As I said, our website should be going up live. It's engagement.nashville.gov/housing and infrastructure. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Claxton, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And commissioners, I also want to thank Councilor Gamble for being our council representative, because all this process and any changes that we make will have to go to the council. And so thank you for always being so thoughtful, and we appreciate your work. I know it's a lot of extra hours, and just know that it doesn't go unnoticed, and we really appreciate it. But commissioners, I do want to emphasize, I think the director and I have talked about this, and also the vice chair. This is a really important study. We have a lot of folks that have different opinions on how growth is addressed in Nashville. And I think that it's important, and I think that having experts and professionals doing this study and having proper public engagement is a really important part of this process. And I think that that's an excellent thing. And so, commissioners, I highly recommend that you read the study, be involved in the process if you have questions. The director always, and or any of the Planning Commission staff, this is really important to pay attention to, because there will be a lot of follow-up, as Greg said, in the coming months and probably years. And so this is a really important process. So I just want to iterate that I appreciate the staff. I know it's a lot of work, but Greg, we always appreciate what you do, and thank you for the presentation. We thought that this was an important update for you guys, for the commissioners and the public to know that we're working on this.
Chair, I do have one minor correction. I had the website wrong since we're launching
Well, that
today.
could be a problem.
I've put the corrected address up on the screen. It is engage.nashville.gov/housing and infrastructure. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Claxton. All right. Anything else, Director, on the study that you want to say?
No,
Okay.
just let us know if you have questions, and we're looking forward to doing a more detailed briefing next month. So thank you so much. Thank
Can
you,
I ask
Greg.
one quick question on the timeline? So you don't anticipate recommended changes to the zoning code by next June, or do you? Or is that in the recommendation in March?
We expect to have findings in March and develop more detailed recommendations that we would bring forward in June.
So we could be talking about and potentially voting on stuff sometime next year.
Yes. I mean, I think, we're advisory to council, and so I think we're going to come out, we're working with Councilwoman Gamble, and we'll make sure that we're engaging members in February, well in advance of delivering the findings. When we go to council with the findings, the deadline is March. I think we're going to need to see where we are. To the chair's point, there's going to be a robust debate, but we would like to propose changes to the zoning code as well as the map, and that would happen over the summer. Exactly what that looks like is going to need to reflect what we hear from members in the community. So I don't know yet what that looks like, but we'll be working through it aggressively over the next few months. And yes, anything that we propose will come before you for advice, and we'll just work through it. Yeah.
Any other questions from the commissioners? We'll make sure we get this out. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Claxton. Very good information. All right. So we are on item 9.
Selena Koenigstein presenting item number 9. The request is to permit a multifamily residential development. Staff's recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. The approximately 10.5 acre site is located southwest of the intersection of Clarksville Pike and Abernathy Road. The subject site has frontage on Abernathy Road, a dead-end road which terminates to the west. The site is within a quarter mile of the nearest bus stops at Clarksville Pike and Abernathy Road. Surrounding zoning districts include RS15, SP, and CS, with surrounding land uses, including residential, vacant, and commercial land. There are a few policies on the site: suburban mixed-use corridor, which is intended to enhance suburban mixed-use corridors by encouraging a greater mix of higher density residential and mixed-use development along the corridor. There's also suburban neighborhood evolving, which is intended to create and enhance suburban residential neighborhoods with more housing choices, improved pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicular connectivity, and moderate density development patterns. And then there's also a little bit of conservation shown in green, which is intended to preserve environmentally sensitive land features through protection and remediation. On this site, the conservation policy is addressing a wet weather conveyance. The plan proposes a total of 170 multifamily residential units across the site. 7 smaller multifamily structures containing a total of 21 stacked flats are proposed fronting Abernathy Road, and the 5 larger multifamily buildings interior to the site contain the remainder of the units. The detached smaller structures along Abernathy have a maximum height of 3 stories and 45 feet and appear more single-family in form, similar to the single-family structures that are further down Abernathy Road. The buildings interior to the site are split between 3 and 4 stories, stepping up with the grade toward the rear of the site. These buildings have a maximum height of 4 stories and 60 feet. A minimum of 15% glazing is required on buildings building facades, fronting of street, and vehicular access to the site is through a private drive from Abernathy Road. There are also sidewalk connections provided internally throughout the site from all units and buildings to Abernathy Road. And then along Abernathy Road, the plan is also showing right-of-way dedication consistent with local street standards. A stormwater area is proposed on the northwestern corner of the site. As shown on the plan, there's also a 20-foot landscape buffer on the western boundary. There are no landscape buffers on the eastern and southern boundaries. However, the site abuts a TVA easement, which precludes development in this area, resulting in a buffer. This is a rendering of what the buildings are proposed to look like along the Abernathy Road frontage. They're proposed with a maximum height of 3 stories and 45 feet, and with the height being measured to the midpoint, the primary roof pitch. The subject site is located uniquely along the border of a T3CM, T3NE policy area, and a T3NE policy area. Contains a small portion of a conservation area as well. A small portion of the site on the eastern side is the part that's within the T3CM area, and then most of the site is in the T3NE policy. There's also the conservation area, which was has been determined to be a wet weather conveyance. So there's a lot of information on this slide regarding how the proposed SP aligns with the policies on the site. A couple of highlights are the site's proximity to a major corridor and transit being able to support higher density. The site also provides a visual transition along Abernathy Road through the smaller stacked flat structures, bridging the existing residential structures to the west of the site to the Clarksville Pike corridor on the east. The proposed development meets the goals of the policy to provide increased residential density with a variety of building types near an evolving high-capacity transit corridor. And as such, staff's recommendation is to approve with conditions and disapprove without all conditions. And also, please note there's a memo that was placed on your daises with a height modification, or kind of just clarifying that a little bit more.
Thank you, Selena. All right, so item number 9, we'll open this item for public hearing, and is the applicant in the room? Welcome, and you have 10 minutes, and you can reserve 2 of the 10 minutes for rebuttal. And Lisa, if you could set the clock for us.
Thank you, Chairman Atkins, and good evening, Planning Commissioners. Appreciate your service. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight, and I would kindly request the 2 minutes for rebuttal, please. This project is really unique in the sense that it created a lot of challenges for us to consider the best design solution at this location. It's located on a high-density corridor. It has a land use policy that supports growth along this corridor, and it's in great contrast to the existing conditions. The existing conditions are primarily single-family along this Abernathy Road that's adjacent to the corridor. And so we spent a lot of time working, we did have multiple Zoom calls with the community members, as well as working diligently with planning staff to go through multiple rounds of iterations to ensure that we can have a growth plan for this site, but that in this transitional period of this growth corridor, the growth in this corridor, it also does some respect to the contextual nature of the residential around it. And so you'll see some of that throughout this presentation, and I'll reference a few images in this packet that is supplemental in front of you. The current policy with the neighborhood evolving and corridor policy supports higher density along the major corridor, especially those served by transit. The project site's located approximately 200 feet from Clarksville Pike and within close walking distance of an existing bus stop, and there will be transit improvements as part of this development. The preliminary zone packet proposes up to 175 affordable housing units. The growth comparison sheet that's on page 6 indicates a lot of the existing developments and recently approved rezonings of parcels in the area with the same policy and similar or higher densities than what we are currently proposing within this development plan. The current growth pattern of the area indicates higher density development along Clarksville Pike with a transition to lower intensity development internal to existing well-established neighborhoods. The site plan has also gone through multiple rounds of iterations. We originally had multifamily stacked flats on the road frontage. That's the most visible component from the community. We went through several rounds of looking at alternative building product type and unit types that would be more contextually appropriate in massing and scale to a residential form. And so what you see here in this final version, instead of having two large monolithic buildings fronting on that Abernathy Road, we want to focus more of a single-family detached form for that area along the public frontage, and then transition to the higher density product internal to the development. The project is abutted by a large TVA easement and commercial uses to the south, and the residential uses are concentrated to across the street on the north and directly to the abutting the western portion of the site. We've also looked at targeted tree preservation to protect some of the views into the site in the northwest corner there as well. The project site is located in what's called a qualified census tract, which is an area that qualifies for federal tax credits for a subsidy for low-income housing. Affordable housing near this corridor with this level of access is extremely valuable, in solving our current housing crisis. A QCT zone property of this scale is pivotal so that we can secure that gap funding, and the level of density proposed is needed to make it an affordable housing viable project. We believe this site is a really great location for affordable housing. You could see some more information on that on sheet 7. The proposed project provides much needed residential near a major multimodal corridor served by transit. And we are really in a close 5-minute walk proximity to a variety of uses, including an urban grocery, the YMCA community center, the new Blue Cross Healthy Place outdoor play area, and that provides the community with spaces to get to know one another and enjoy healthy activities in the area. We've been looking at this site for a little over a year, and I think, as I outlined in the beginning, the challenges around balancing the growth needs of the community, but also respecting at least the transitional nature of our communities that are single family in the meantime, and how we can begin to balance those needs is extremely critical. And I think that we've worked really hard to establish a plan that accomplishes those goals. And we empathize with residents too that are in the community that may have different values and opinions about growth. And so, but I hope that, we've presented something that really aims to balance the needs of everyone as much as possible, and provide for affordable housing and growth along this corridor. With that said, I'm happy to answer any questions afterward, of course, and I look forward to your conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll reserve 2 minutes for rebuttal. Anyone in the room wishing to speak in support? Anyone wishing to speak in support? Seeing none. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Come on up. And just as a reminder, you have 2 minutes. The timer is right here, and state your name and the area where you're from. Thank you.
Yes, the name is Margaret Johnson, and I live at 3871 Abernathy Road. On our street is a very narrow street. It's one road, one lane in, one lane. That's it. Where you go up, down, it's one way, okay? It's very hard to pass, for cars to pass there. If you judge wrong, you're off in the ditch, okay? We have a funeral home that's on the corner of Clarksville Highway, and that presents a lot of issues for us to travel for homeowners up and down the Abernathy Road, because we get blocked in, we get blocked out. We've had to call the police to come and speak to someone at the funeral home so we could get into our homes. My husband and I are gotten older, of course, and we moved out there for retirement to live out our good years as the best possible. Thank you, and I appreciate it all.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Come on up. I need to, yeah, so we passed a new rule. You don't have to say your address, just, we do that for security, just like Davidson County or, area is fine. We want to make sure nobody gets, thank you.
Well, my name is Terrence Pfizer. I also live on the street. I'm a homeowner. We oppose this as a community on the street because this will be devastating to our street. We already have, like you said, problems with traffic control now where people try to park on a highway, only one car can travel. And we also are concerned about, we are a major water runoff from that hill with that 170 units. And I don't see how it's going to support, the storm drain is going to support that. We already had issues. We are adjacent to the floodplain. So we already had past issues of that water runoff. It's going to be too much for the street, and they're landlocked, so they have to dump it onto our street. They have no way else to get to Clarksville Highway. And I'm not opposed for developing on Clarksville Highway. It's just our street can't handle this type of 170 units. We're not opposed to any kind of building. It's just this is major for a little community dead-end road that we have. So we are definitely opposed to this. And that's basically all I have to say about it. I really hope this don't go through.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Come on up. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Samantha Culver. I live on the street also. I'm native from Nashville, and the growth has been exponential. Opportunities for many people have been leaps and bounds. My concern, and my father, who is recently deceased, our major concerns, number one was the noise ordinance on the street. If they're going to develop, take into consideration that they have the entrance off of Clarksville Highway instead of disturbing Abernathy Road. My second concern was the depreciation of the value of the homes. If you put a mixed living home development right basically on Abernathy Road, and it is introducing low-income homes or low-income subsidized living, mixed living into these units, our properties are going to depreciate versus appreciating upward. So it's not really attractive for any of our neighbors or me to have this subsidized living introduced into this area. The third concern that I have is if the subdivision is introduced into this area, the owners of this, my understanding of is that they were a farming family. And so they go back years, but I mean, some of us have been here just as long as they have. For whatever reason, we still have property that we own. My concern is that if you introduce, especially subsidized low-income housing, which is not traditional to this area.
Thank you, ma'am.
Is that the end?
It goes fast here at the Planning Commission. Time flies when you're having fun.
To know, is it going to be a diverse addition to development, not just who's proposing it and has the financial backing?
Appreciate it. Thank you. Anyone else? Come on up. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Tyler Shaw, and I also live on Abernathy. Myself and my wife, she couldn't be here today. But basically, the first concern I have, and this is something that the gentleman said here, and I asked when we had our meeting, would they be getting any tax credits to develop this property, and they told me no. So that's really a concern. Also, the water runoff coming from, so we live right next to where the property is going to be. So there's a natural stream that flows into the neighbor's yard across the street. So all that water is going to come right down the hill and basically flood them out. Basically, this development, it isn't right for the street. I mean, we have no problem with development. It just should be something that fits the neighborhood. And this is just basically going to throw our neighborhood off. You walk out the front door and you got 3 or 4 deer standing in your front yard. It's a natural area. Like I said, no problem with development, but we need to have something that's going to fit our neighborhood. And there also the problem that I have with the entry and exit. There's only one way in and one way out of this property. So you can imagine what it's going to be like to get in and out now. When just say now you have 10 cars coming out a day, and you multiply that, let's say 250 cars is going to be exiting and entering this single road every day. Basically, like I said, it's not right for the area. Thank you.
Thank you. And if we could get the staff, can you move one of the chairs over for them? Help them out. We'll get you, we'll move you up.
You can use these as well.
Here we go.
Okay. All right.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is John Johnson. I am a former head of housing for the State Housing Agency. I was head of the construction department for 21 years. One of the things that we have problems with is density. This project is going to represent about 1,250 units of housing within a quarter of a mile. And I know from past experience that density is always a problem, especially when you have that many. Most of those, this project and the one across the street, which is about 650 units, is going to be low-income housing. When you put that many low-income neighbors together, you have nothing but problems. Like I said, we're on there's also there's a gas line that runs through there that was not mentioned. It's a 30-inch gas line. Also, we have tried to work with the landlord, with the potential owners, and to try to come to some conclusion, and we have not been successful to this point. We've offered them alternative housing as far as concerned as possibility of more lower density is from elderly or even townhomes or single-family homes. So we have been trying to work out something, but it seems to have not been to no avail. That's why we are primarily saying, no, we do not want it. I chose to move out there 18 years ago as my retirement. I built my house for the purpose of being able to live there because I moved from Belmont out there. So if that gives you any indicator. We also asked them for a price point of rents and for a bedroom mix, and we've never been able to get it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? I'll make sure we got everybody. All right, seeing no one else, rebuttal, 2 minutes. And if you could, we need to turn the other microphone.
Thank you. I want to thank the residents for coming out today, and those are all very valid concerns, and that I want to address a few of them just to hopefully alleviate maybe or answer some questions that might address some of those issues. Number one is the stormwater. We hear that loud and clear. One of the great benefits of developing this property is that it has to meet the stringent stormwater requirements of Metro, which would require us to treat all stormwater on site with no runoff outside of our boundary. So this development will improve the existing condition and eliminate it as a problem. Secondly, I didn't mention before, but we are providing several infrastructure improvements, including we are widening Abernathy. It is very narrow, widening Abernathy out to Clarksville Pike. We're also have several commitments to NDOT for increased transit mobility, transit shelters, crosswalks, sidewalks. We're also putting in new PED signals and crosswalks at the Clarksville Pike intersection. And the entrance, you know, we don't have direct frontage on Clarksville. There is one parcel between us. However, there is also a jurisdictional stream that would prevent any crossing of it. So even if that parcel was part of this development, it wouldn't permit an entrance. So it's something we explored early. And then, you know, we do hear the concern about depreciation. I definitely understand that fear. There's been very national studies completed on low-income tax credit housing, and that prove that is really not the reality that comes out of these developments, but completely understand the concern. And lastly, the tax credit. I mean, just to clarify, this project, we are pursuing tax credits. They are earned, not given, and so it's a competitive bid process. And, you know, if not, it would be more attainable housing. So, thank you.
And I didn't see the council member, so not seeing anyone wishing to speak, I declare the public hearing closed. Vice Chair, you want to go first?
Sure, this is an interesting one. And I know we're not allowed to take into consideration the fact that this is low-income housing tax credit, potentially low-income housing tax credit project. But I can't help but think getting more affordable housing is really important. And this does seem to be a really good location. I do understand the neighbors' concerns. It is very clearly a narrow, small street, lots of, single-family homes with a lot of land around them. This is a big change. Was there a traffic study of any sort, or does this not require a traffic study?
There's been an MMTA for this one, or at least has been started. There's a couple. Oh, sorry. There's been an MMTA for this one. So
there has
multimodal transit, transportation analysis.
And any findings from it?
You'll see conditions in the staff report related to that in regards to required improvements. There were some off-site improvements that were identified, and they would be completed or reviewed at final site plan. There were also, the applicant intends to file for CHIP, which is a program through planning for a sidewalk gap connection from the property frontage to Clarksville Pike and also an enhanced pedestrian crossing at Clarksville Pike. If the funding is not granted, they would still look at those improvements with the final site plan. This development would also be required to provide some widening on their frontage of Abernathy, and there's a requirement as well that there be a minimum width of paving all the way to Clarksville Pike, so not so extended beyond this frontage as well.
Okay, well, that will definitely help with some of the concerns. I mean, it's unfortunate they're not one lot closer to Clarksville Pike, because it would be nicer to have some of the entrance, to be able to have more than one entrance on and off a smaller road to a project of this size. I mean, in many ways, this is located exactly where we want to see, housing like this, especially given the connection to the other service providers, the YMCA, the schools. In so many ways, this is exactly where we want to see housing opportunities developed. Are there sidewalks on Clarksville Pike? It doesn't look like it. Yes. There are. So you can walk down to the YMCA.
Wait, hold on a second.
Hold on, everybody. One person at a time.
Sorry, stop.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
There are sidewalks on the opposite side of Clarksville Pike that have been installed as part of some new developments and some improvement projects. Part of one of the offsite improvements is an enhanced crossing on Clarksville Pike to allow you to easily get to those improved sidewalks.
Enhanced crossing, and that would mean, does that mean
Enhanced
like
pedestrian crossing, yes. It's typically, would have a signal control for pedestrians.
okay, so we'll actually stop traffic.
I do not have all of the details, and they're not in this, but
Yeah.
it just indicates an enhanced crossing.
I hate to think of kids trying to cross Clarksville Pike to get down to the Y, and,
We would need to consult with NDOT to get further information on that.
yeah.
And Vice Chair, let's get it, I think the developer has an answer to that. So
Sure.
we like to get a full answer.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, that is true, but there was a new sidewalk project in the last 3 years that provides sidewalks on the western side. So we won't be requiring people to cross the street to get to a sidewalk. You can get to, it's a brand-new TDOT project.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You know, I mean, I certainly understand the concerns of the neighborhood, and these are really hard decisions for us to make when we are going into neighborhoods like this that have an established single-family pattern, that have established pattern of significant open space, people that have lived in their homes for a long time. And I'm very sensitive to how disruptive something like this would be. But I also really believe that we need more affordable and attainable housing, and that this is, by many indications, a very good location for it. So, one other question, and we probably can't answer this, but if there are another 400 units of low-income housing tax credit, another 400-unit low-income housing tax credit project going in across the street, I mean, this is probably something that THDA takes into some consideration, but we don't want to overly concentrate in one area. So I don't know how, that's not our purview, but it is something to take into account.
That isn't a factor that we
Right.
consider through leases section, but it is something that our housing division could offer some visibility into. So I might suggest at the briefing on next month that Angie just provide program information, not about this site particularly, but about how she evaluates the concentration through her programming decisions and how she communicates with the state. So we're happy to give you kind of broad program information at that time.
Yeah, maybe at some point we could think about a note in our staff report, if it's not there, from the housing division on things like that. Something.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So instead of asking each commissioner to speak, we'll just open it up for discussion. Is there further discussion? Anybody? Commissioner Marshall, and then we'll go to Council.
Thank you. So for the benefit of the commissioners, I know this area very well, and the concern that the neighbors have brought out are real concerns, especially with that street. If I got it right, that is the street where the fire station is located on the right, and the auto place is on the left there. And the street is very, very narrow. Probably very old, but I'm sure if I hear the builder say correct, he would be widening that street. The issue about the funeral home being on the end, which is a very busy funeral home that does create big crowds at times, that's an issue as well. My question would be, and it may be directed toward the contractor, is it any options at all to come off of Abernathy back to Ashland City Highway? You may not own all of that land, but is there an option there to do that? Because that would alleviate the issue of the traffic. And I see you nodding no. Clarksville Highway, that area has been increased to a 4-lane highway. There are sidewalks there on the west side, as he mentioned. There's another apartment complex right there on the left across from it. I think the problem that the seat that I sit in, which is on the side of doing homeownership for residential people, putting in apartments like this and doesn't affect the value of your residential property. We're looking at something totally different when we're evaluating the value of those homes. So I understand the community concern, but that's just not the reality of what we deal with, you know, when we're doing appraisals for residential properties. Based on the pictures that I see here that they just passed around, though, I don't see how this is tied to low-income housing. And I think that's another thing that we deal with all the time. When you put that word to it, it puts a different thought pattern in people's minds. However, that is not the reality of it at all. These type of, for instance, we would, on the financing side, we would consider low-income housing, you know, for someone that's making $127,000 a year, you know, and they can buy a house up to $450,000. That's not the low-income housing I grew up in, okay? And so I think that connotation kind of scare people away, you know, when they get their low-income housing piece. This, to me, looked like a great project that would fit into our area. I live in this area, by the way, as well. If I am thinking right, Abernathy may have maximum 6 to 8 homes on that street. If I'm 6, okay. And so I don't see the big impact other than I do see the traffic. Behind it, where the other homes are, there is that buffer between Abernathy and I think Glendale or whatever one of those streets over there, right? And so I'm struggling with it from the standpoint that I definitely think it's a great site for what is trying to come there. And it's not so much into the into the residential area of that community. It's more into the commercial area with Kroger's and all of the different, you know, commercial places that already exist there. And so I would be inclined to support the staff recommendation, but I certainly would love to hear other comments.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I think there was one question of the developer was that Commissioner Marshall had, which was a connection to not on Abernathy, but Ashland City Highway. Can you answer that?
We just need to put it in the record, so
Yeah.
don't need to elaborate.
Yeah, so the answer to that is that we are transitioning about 100 feet of topo grade, and so access over the hill, obviously we don't own the property behind us, and something that, you know, I don't think we've actually explored, but just the transition over the top of the hill would be cumbersome in itself. So for that reason, we haven't explored anything to the south or making that connection.
Yeah, Commissioner.
Okay, so if not all the way back, this property is close to the shopping center as well. The little shopping center that's right there.
Do you have a map?
That goes behind the auto place. And so that is another interest that not only, if you cut it that way, it would go on Clarksville Highway and also go on Ashland City Highway if you had a back interest from this particular project.
If you're referencing the commercial at the corner, the SCN right there labeled on the map, but
Commercial where
where the split is?
the commercial where it's like used to be Pizza Hut. I can't remember what the name
Yeah,
of
so
it is now.
there's
It's
one
right behind it.
There's a residential property between that area, so that's an approved plan. The property just to our south is an approved plan for additional housing currently.
Okay, additional housing for that site.
And, well, it does have some limited commercial as well.
So there is an SP that separates this SP and that commercial corner that you're talking about.
So then there's a possibility there will be another out for this particular building going more toward Ashland City Highway.
I agree. I understand what you're saying now. We did look at that, but the topography change between the two sites is significant, and it would be not feasible to build a road because it wouldn't meet Metro standards. So it is like over 100 feet of grade change in a very short distance. So we looked at a southern one because that would be great to connect the two communities together.
Thank you. Anything else, Commissioner? You good? Make sure you get all your questions answered. Council Lady, you're next.
Thank you, Chair, and I think Commissioner Marshall asked my questions and they have been answered. It was about the widening of the street that is intended to be done, and then I had the question about the connection to the property to the south. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other discussion? Commissioner Allen.
I'm very familiar with this area as well. I live close by and empathize with the comments of the community members and their concerns. One of the concerns that I read in one of the public comments mentioned that there is a lot of development going on in this area along Clarksville Pike, a lot of multifamily housing that's being built currently, but there was a concern with the lack of amenities support that's going along with that development. So I just wanted to maybe ask the question, do we have any information, or is there any information that can be shared on any of the amenity or mixed-use developments that are currently going on or have been approved for this area that would support additional density like this?
Can you go back the other way? Oh, wait. Yeah, go down one more. There. Okay. Yes. So the subject site you can see is outlined in green where this is proposed. And then these are other SPs that have been approved in this sort of general area. You'll see immediately to the south an SP that was approved for multifamily, and then 30,000 square feet of mixed use. And so generally, though, when you've got like a mixed use, that's generally going to permit things like retail, restaurants, SPs and the way that they are approved. The square footage is usually outlined and then a list of permitted uses, but it's not going to be so precise that we can say there's going to be a grocery store in that, or there's going to be a dry cleaner or a specific type of retail. The SPs are permissive in that they give a certain square footage and then they give a list of uses that might fit into that square footage. And so in these three or four that are shown on the screen, you're looking at around 130,000 square feet of sort of retail or mixed use allowances other than residential. Those are in various stages of approval in regards to like final site plan. And Selena has that information and can sort of tell you where they are in the process of actual development.
Yeah, so SP 028, the one to the south, the preliminary has been approved, the preliminary SP. And then 2021 SP 041, that one, the final was approved earlier this year. 2019 SP 066, the final SP was also approved. And then the 2023 SP 035, that one, just the preliminary has been approved at this point.
Okay, that's helpful. My only other concern, again, has been mentioned, which would be the traffic issues, especially with just having that one entry point into or from Abernathy into this development. But just what would help me is if there were more of a transition from that single family housing that's already existing to a higher density instead of there. It feels like a big contrast. It doesn't feel like it belongs on that road where the rest of the houses are. So that would make me feel a little bit better about it. But, if it's just thinking about the policy and what, how it falls up under the policy and it aligns with the policy of higher density. You know, I see how, or I understand the recommendation from the staff, but I would generally like to see more of a respect to the context in the site plan, to maybe just be less of a contrast and more of a transition to the existing.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? Commissioner Leslie.
Well, I'm very familiar with this area, and
There we go. Yep,
what's that button right there?
That's it.
That's the confusion button.
Yeah. Don't push that button.
Where's the blow up?
Don't push that button.
Okay. Well, I'm very familiar with that area, and the border area is a place where it looks, it's the last almost area where it's almost country, associated, contrasted with the city. Those houses over there have a lot of land. I understand that I can see the contrast from going from the single family stepping up to maybe multifamily, rather, just like you said, rather than going boom, boom. But I understand the policy. And to echo Commissioner Marshall's statement, low-income housing is not necessarily the same as affordable housing. And so I think we get those mixed up sometimes. But I wanted to ask the developer, in terms of widening the street, Abernathy is going to be widened, is that understand? And is it just slightly, or is it going to be changed to 2 lanes, or, because really it's just like a 1-lane street at this point?
Yeah, currently I think there are some pinch points closer towards Clarksville Pike that 15 feet, and we have been instructed by NDOT to make that a minimum of 20 feet all the way to Clarksville Pike. So it'll be widened from where it is today, a minimum of 15 to 20 feet. So we're adding 5 feet of width, and we're adding a streetscape along our entire frontage, and potentially a connection with the sidewalk, depending on working with NDOT, all the way out to Clarksville Pike.
Okay, and this is probably not part of our purview, but I was just wondering, did you know what the exterior of the buildings would look like?
That's a him question.
Yeah, so the architecture, I mean, still undetermined, but we did provide some character imagery in our packet that showed the potential architectural style for it's more traditional, to reflect the context of the single-family homes. So we want to make sure that from a design standpoint, it's, consistent with what's built in the area and not in deep contrast.
And,
Thank you.
And Commissioner, we included a standard material condition that we often include that requires brick, stone, masonry, hardy for building materials.
Could I just ask the staff to clarify the condition around connecting the sidewalk to Clarksville Pike from NDOT?
I asked the director that, so sorry. I would really prefer personally to have a sidewalk to that.
Yes, so the MMTA included some off-site improvements such as sidewalk connection all the way to Clarksville Pike. The applicant, through a program that is called the CHIP program, which is Connecting Housing and Infrastructure, I cannot remember what the P stands for, which is a program where affordable housing developments can work with Metro. There's a pool of money set up where Metro will be a partner in some of those offsite improvements that we think are really important, but that can sometimes be cost prohibitive for an affordable housing development to roll into their cost. And so the 2 offsite improvements are being applied for funding in that program. And one of those is the sidewalk gap connection. And then the other is the enhanced pedestrian crossing. NDOT has left themselves some room in here to basically say, if funding isn't granted, that doesn't mean that we're not going to still continue the conversation because we think that those are important. And so that's why they've written it that way, to say basically, if funding is not granted, we still are going to talk about it.
Thank you. That answers my question. And I forgot to ask everybody, make sure you silent your phones, but that was pretty funny. All right.
Can I ask one other question on that?
Yeah, Vice Chair.
Are there any improvements, I mean, with those two big projects going in a little further down Clarksville, are there any, I mean, let's say we don't get an enhanced pedestrian improvements across Clarksville at Abernathy, it seems like you would still maybe want it with the two projects down below. Is there any sort of way of encouraging such coordination? So somewhere on Clarksville between these three projects, you get that?
Each of those projects would have had their own MMTA with required improvements. I do not know what those required improvements are without going back and looking at each of the MMTAs for those projects. I will say that each project as an MMTA is done, those projects and their development levels are included as background traffic. And so it does look sort of holistically at the area, but we also have to be thoughtful about assigning improvements to projects, because we have to make sure, again, that the test is being met of, is there a nexus between what we're requiring of a particular development, a nexus between that development and what's being required, and that the requirement is also proportional to the development. And so there are sort of scales of what we can require.
But that's a good example, which we do talk about a lot, where we have infrastructure needs. In an area like this is clearly getting a significant influx of new housing units in a short window of time, where, you know, if we're going to build out like that, and to your point, we can't put it all in one project, we need to have some sort of comprehensive way of thinking about the infrastructure needs for this. So sometime we'll figure that out.
This is exactly the kind of case study that you're going to see in the housing and infrastructure work. We're going to have some case studies, not this one particularly, but these are dynamics that we're going to talk about with some recommendations.
Great.
Excellent discussion. Any more discussion? Make sure. We'll need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendation to approve the project, including all conditions.
That's a proper motion. Is there a second? Second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and item 9 is adopted. That leads us to item 20. Bob, you're back.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Bob.
My name is Bob Lehman. I'll be presenting the next item on the agenda. Item 20, this is a zoning text amendment that changes a definition in the code. And
hey, Bob, hold on a second. If everybody could, if everybody could just step out of the room. We're still meeting. If everybody could. We appreciate it, though. Thank you for coming down. All right, Bob, start over.
That's okay. This is item 20. This is a zoning text amendment which adds a new definition to the code and also changes a definition in the zoning code. This is a bill that's already been introduced by Councilman Taylor and Councilmember Ellis. The first part of this text amendment adds a new definition for bar and nightclub, and the purpose of this is to help distinguish bars and nightclubs from restaurants. And this is to help the zoning administrator when there's a question, because sometimes restaurants have bars in them, but they're not considered, technically they're not considered bars. So the new definition that's proposed is bar and nightclub means an establishment primarily in the business of the sale of alcoholic beverages for on-premises consumption and possessing the appropriate licenses for such, and where the sale of prepared food accounts for 49% or less of the establishment's sales. There's also a second part of the definition that classifies small and large bars and nightclubs, and a small bar nightclub would be an establishment with a maximum occupancy of 100 persons or fewer, and a large is an establishment with a maximum occupancy of greater than 100 people. The second part of this text change is to change the definition for beer and cigarette market. The purpose of this is to address new products that are being sold in the more recent past, such as the vape, CBD, and THC products. Currently, the zoning administrator classifies these as retail, and I think it's been seen as it would be helpful if these were sort of classified as part of the beer and cigarette market definition to help clarify some of these uses when there's a question about an establishment's actual permitted use. As part of the analysis, staff looked at the definitions that are proposed, and as part of the bar and nightclub definition, it includes the small and large establishment provision. Staff is recommending that part of the text changed be eliminated, because right now, currently in the code, there is no distinction between small and large, and there may be future text changes that give meaning to that, but right now in the code, it would not serve a purpose to have a small and large, and so staff is recommending that part be eliminated. It also proposes language in the definition for bar and nightclub that sets a percentage of sales that would kind of distinguish between if it's over 50% of sales of food, it becomes a restaurant. If it's under 50%, it is a bar. We checked with the codes department and the zoning administrator on this, and they indicated that they don't currently track or have the means to track or verify the percentage of sales in each of these types of establishments. So staff is recommending that part of the definition be eliminated as well. And so the more simplified version of this that staff is recommending would read as bars and nightclubs means any establishment primarily in the business of the sale of alcoholic beverages for on-premises consumption and possessing the appropriate licenses for such. And we feel like this is adequate, and the zoning administrator has reviewed this and agrees that because the state sort of has two types of licenses, a restaurant license and a limited service restaurant license, that's sufficient to distinguish these from restaurants based on the type of state license they get from the ABC. Staff does not have any concerns with the definition for beer and cigarette market, and with that, staff recommends disapproval of the bill as filed, as submitted, and approval with the substitute ordinance that's outlined in your staff report. And as Lisa mentioned earlier, today you'll hold the public hearing and discuss this item, and then defer it by rule to your next meeting, which is January 9th, 2025.
Thank you, Bob. Any discussion? Commissioner Leslie.
So let me see what you're trying to say. So a bar, what does it mean, when you say bar nightclub means any establishment primarily in the business of the sale of alcoholic beverages? How do you determine whether it's primarily?
Well, that's where it goes back to the state license that they received. They either get a restaurant license or a limited service restaurant, and that's sort of a euphemism for a bar. It's a limited service restaurant that doesn't have a kitchen. It doesn't typically have a kitchen. It doesn't have a full menu. It's not a sit-down type establishment. So I think over time it's been established that those operate as bars, primarily bars or nightclubs, when they get the limited service restaurant license from the ABC.
So this doesn't apply to a full service restaurant?
No, there's a different definition in the code for a full service restaurant. So this adding this definition, there is no definition in the code currently for bar or nightclub, and adding this will give the zoning administrator the ability to sort of separate them, and if there's a complaint from neighbors about how they operate, they can either, he can determine if it's compliant or not compliant with the definition in the zoning code. But today there is no definition, so this is being put into the code to sort of help distinguish the two uses.
Any other, Commissioner, is that it? Commissioner Leslie?
Not really, but I'll have to look at it.
Okay.
Study it, yeah.
Okay. Any other? Commissioner Dunn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll get Commissioner Dundon and then
Yeah,
Vice Chair. Sorry.
Can you explain a little what the difference is? Like, what's the purpose of this, of the change? Like, why do we need to know the difference between whether it's a restaurant or a limited service restaurant? Is it because the license itself allows them to do different activities?
Well, they are, yeah, Lisa may be able to answer that in terms of the state ABC law and whether they have different activities that are allowed.
So our definition does not include restaurant and limited service restaurant. Right now, the zoning code includes various uses: full-service restaurant, takeout restaurant, and bar and nightclub. Full-service restaurant is defined, takeout restaurant is defined, bar and nightclub is not defined. Okay. And so we got a proposal to define bar and nightclub, and we analyzed it and worked with the zoning administrator to understand, as filed with a percentage breakdown, does codes monitor and track the percent of sales? And they said they do not. And so we recommended removal of that. However, we do think it would be helpful to have a definition of bar and nightclub that differentiates it from a full-service restaurant. Just because a full-service restaurant sells alcohol does not make it a bar. A full-service restaurant's principal activity is the sale of food. A bar's principal activity is the sale of alcohol. And so having those defined means that the zoning administrator then, if there are property standards complaints, has the ability to apply those definitions and investigate if there are complaints.
So if the definition is qualitative like that, is it self-reporting? I mean, does the zoning administrator go to the establishment and say, tell me if you're primarily in the business of A or B?
The zoning administrator indicated to us that they would have they use various techniques when they need to investigate property standards complaints. At times, they have sent people into facilities to observe, to determine what the activity is that's taking place in those facilities. They may request records from the state in regard who taxes those things. They may request records from the state in regards to sales levels. And then also the state does issue licenses, and so they can request those licenses as well. It depends on what the complaint is. If it's a noise complaint, that's something different. If it's a use complaint, that's different. And the codes department would have various means to undertake working with Metro Legal, any of those property standards complaints.
And just one last question. So is from a zoning perspective, this is about so that you have a definition for the different categories of uses of a particular activity?
That's correct.
Is that right? Okay, thank you.
Vice Chair, and then we'll get back to Commissioner Leslie.
I think you kind of got to my question. So basically the limited service restaurant is just one way that the zoning administrator might be clued into the fact that this is more likely to be a bar.
Right,
There's
if
no
they're
other.
investigating it, that's one thing that they would look at.
Okay, that's all
Commissioner Leslie.
I think what I'm missing is that why does there need to be a distinction? They're not treated any differently in terms of, I believe, if a zoning is that you have to be a certain amount of feet away from a church or something like that. So I don't see why there has to be a distinction as to whether it's a bar or club or a limited service or a full service restaurant. Are they taxed different? Are they treated differently?
There are some differentiations in the zoning code. For instance, in the MUN zoning district, there are limitations in regards to non-residential uses. And those limitations include square footage restrictions, Within MUN, a bar or nightclub is limited to 2,500 square feet. A full-service restaurant is limited to 5,000 square feet. And so that distinction in the definition becomes necessary in some of those zoning categories because there are different standards for those uses in the code.
Okay, that's what I
And
wanted to know.
there's different zoning districts that they're allowed in. So there's different standards and different districts that each one is allowed in.
Thank you. Any, Council Lady?
Thank you, Chair. Just wondered if you have any information from either of the council members that are bringing forth this legislation, Councilmember Taylor or Ellis, as to why they feel there's a need for that distinction.
I mean, we've been in contact with Councilman Taylor, and I know Lisa has probably talked to him more than I have over the years relating to this. I don't know if you have anything that you can update, but I mean, I think it's just for the reasons that were stated to distinguish the two uses, restaurant from bar and nightclub, so that there's a clear distinction in the code that the zoning administrator can make. And if there's complaints, then they have a easier way of addressing it with those property owners.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Sorry. Any other discussion? Seeing no, well, the motion will be to defer. I need to recuse myself. So, any other discussion, or we'll need a motion?
Chairman, just to remain consistent with our rules, I wonder if you would take a moment and open the item for additional hearing and see if anybody in the public has questions.
Yes.
This is a new rule.
So it's a new process.
New process, so we're learning. And
Thank you, Director.
With that, I would ask, once that's done, that the motion be to defer to January the 9th.
So consistent with our rules, I think that we should open the public hearing and then we'll see if anything comes. So we'll open the public hearing on item number 20. Is anyone in the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. We're very official, but if we don't do it, then there'll be, and so we'll need a motion and then I'll have to recuse myself.
Make a motion that we defer this item until the January 9th.
Second.
That's proper motion. Second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of deferral, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and I'm recusing myself. All right, so I think potentially, commissioners, there's some folks that may have left on, so that concludes item 20. We're on item number 23. And there potentially is some folks that may have left that were opposing, and these were on the consent. So item number 23 was originally on the consent and it got kicked off. Oh, no, he's still here. So, and you're in opposition?
A little bit different.
Well, let's just get a clarification, and then we'll have to go through the process. So,
Absolutely.
what's the question?
Well, my name is Max Caskey. I'm here to speak on behalf of Councilmember Jacob Coopin, actually. I should have come up earlier, but after I missed that first window, I decided to.
Is he for it? Or?
He is in support of this item.
Oh, well, then probably it's okay.
Sorry about that. He wanted to give a few quick remarks just to have it on the record, but apologies if I messed up the
Okay,
process
we'll let
there.
you do that. This is on behalf of the councilman, and so go ahead.
Yeah, so the Councilmember
Well,
Jacob.
hold on one second.
No worries.
Without objection, is there objection to letting him speak on behalf of the council member? Is there, seeing no objection, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, and sorry for the confusion there. The council member really just wanted to make his appreciation known as it relates to this project. Oh.
Yeah, if you could repeat your name.
Oh, yeah, no worries at all. Max Caskey, here to speak on behalf of District 19 Councilmember Jacob Coopin.
Thank you.
Specifically, he wanted to make it known his appreciation to the developers of this project on their willingness to have a commercial site included. We know that this is not required, but we were very excited. I know the council member was really wanting to have this in the project, and so we greatly appreciate its inclusion. On top of this, we really wanted to thank the group for working so closely alongside the Germantown Neighborhood Association thus far, and their continued willingness to do this as the project develops. These neighborhood associations are the lifeblood of our community, so we're incredibly grateful for this engagement. Other than that, that is basically all we wanted to have on the record. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming down. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I don't think we've ever done that, but thank you.
Sorry
I
about
really
that.
appreciate it. Tell the councilman we appreciate it. All right, so commissioners, we will need a motion to put this back on the consent agenda. Is there a motion? There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion for putting item number 23 back on the consent agenda to be approved? Seeing no other discussion, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Item 23 is back on the consent agenda and adopted. That leads us to item 35. And this was also on the consent agenda. Is there anyone in the room in opposition of item number 35? Seeing none, commissioners, we can put this back on the consent agenda since there's no opposition. Is there a motion to put item 35 back on the consent agenda to approve? There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Item 35 is adopted and put back on the consent agenda. Item number 36 was also on the consent agenda. Is there anyone in the room wishing to oppose item number 36? Seeing none, commissioners, we can put this item back on the consent agenda. Is there a motion? There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of putting item 36 back on the consent, approving it and putting it back on the consent agenda, say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Item 36 is adopted. We're now on to item 40. I'm assuming Lisa will go over item 40, which is the determination on public hearing of Bellevue Highlands.
I'm happy just to speak generally about what the study is, and then Lisa, if you can explain the process. And so one of the things I'm so proud of with the commission's work is that we are really broadening and deepening the kind of work that we do at every scale, and the diversity of the kinds of projects that we're doing now is really rich. And so we have made an update to the way that the commission processes and receives those studies, because in some instances you'll see a neighborhood plan. In another instance, you'll see something like this, which is more of a technical mobility study. And so the first one that you'll hear in next month is around a mobility analysis that we've been doing predominantly in and around Warner Parks and Cheekwood, where there are some specific issues that have emerged as a result of a parking agreement, and we're supporting Commissioner Henley, who is representing the commission on the Parks Board, and providing some input from him. But as we want to do as a planning department, we also took a step back and looked more broadly at how the neighborhood there overall is working from that perspective, and have some recommendations on that as well. And so basically, because of the variety of technical work that you might do, there may be some instances when a public hearing isn't particularly necessary. This is that opportunity to have the discussion. In this case, there has been robust community engagement and interest, and we believe that there are neighbors who will want to speak to you as you review the staff's recommendations. And so we are recommending that you do open the item for public hearing next month. We're going to be presenting recommendations and findings around mobility, around parking agreement that the Parks Board will consider through Commissioner Henley, as well as a recommendation around access. This commission is uniquely tasked in state law with managing growth through the establishment of new streets and other infrastructure. You're really the only board that can do that, which is why we have structured this unique project with these sets of reviews. And so with that, Chairman, I think it's simply a recommendation that you open the item for public hearing in agreement from the body to do that. Does that make sense? Yes, there will be a public hearing in January, and so this is a recommendation so that we can notice that as open So we'll notice it if you vote with our recommendation. Lisa, did you have any updates?
Only to add that the notice is the placement on the agenda, that there is a public hearing. There is not an additional mailed notice or signs, which sometimes we deal with. It would only be on the agenda and noted that there is a public hearing.
Thank you. Dealing with all sorts of new fun items. Thank you. So is there a motion to approve that we open that item next time for a public hearing? Open that item for a public hearing. Is there a motion? Second? Any other discussion? Any question? Discussion? Vice Chair.
Well, I stumbled across one of these meetings, picking up my son from golf practice one day this fall, and it had a huge turnout. So are all of the people that that attended those meetings, are they aware that it will be on public hearing? Or that we're likely to hear it?
Yes, we have had very robust engagement. And yes.
Okay.
We expect a lot of people.
That's what it sounds like.
Yep. But that's what we're here for. We work through issues, we talk about it, we get the professionals involved, and yeah, there will be a lot of people probably. We're estimating that. So we're still on discussion. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We will have a public hearing on that item. Next is historic, and our representative's not here. Parks, Commissioner Henley.
Thank you, Chair. I won't echo the comments of Lucy, but definitely will also express that there has been a great amount of interest and public engagement brought to the Parks Board related to the study. So that's something that I can also attest to. I would like to say, again, addressing another item that was mentioned earlier in our meeting, the housing and infrastructure study, my role on the Parks Board as well as my role on the Greenways and Open Space Commission, both excited to be a part of that kind of connective and collaborative look at our city. The plan to play is being updated. That's now underway. It's primarily in the process of review with staff, but again, will be one that has a lot of engagement, particularly with the Greenways and Open Space Commission and the Parks Board as well. I think it's a great opportunity to see and have all of those departments collaborate. I think the Parks Department is doing a really good job of highlighting how they've been working well with planning thus far. We concluded the end of our year highlighting not only the Greenway efforts that have taken place, I would say somewhat independently of the private sector, but also very distinctively highlighted projects that have been done in collaboration with planning. And some very exciting developments that have greenways that are either a part of the development or being supported because they are nearby or immediately adjacent to the development. So I just wanted to highlight that. I think it's always important to talk a little bit about the things that are going on behind the scenes. I know we show up to these meetings, but we have staff in all of our departments that are doing really good work. And we do have, as echoed by the gentleman speaking on behalf of Councilman Poopin, we do have some developers in our development community that are making strides to be much more collaborative with the city.
Thank you, Commissioner Henley, and that you bring up very, very good points. Next is the Executive Committee report, and Vice Chair and I want to remind the commissioners that we only have one meeting this December because of the holidays, and we work really hard on the schedule, and we only have one meeting on January 9th, so be there, and it starts an hour early because we're going to talk about the housing study. So make sure you put that on your schedule. And that's it, Vice Chair. I don't think we have anything else as Executive Committee. All right, Director's report.
I just want to wish y'all a happy sort of December holiday break and wish you safety and enjoy your time with your families. And thank you all for your service. January is going to be an important meeting. We'll do the housing update as a work session starting at 3, and then we'll open the commission meeting as usual, hear the Cheekwood case, and as well as all the other things on our docket. So thank you so much for your commitment and your service to the city.
Thank you, Director. Yep. Council Lady, legislative report.
Thank you. I don't have a report. I just want to echo everyone's sentiments and thank Greg Claxton and Angie Hubbard and all of the staff for all of the work that you all are doing on the housing and infrastructure study and all of the study, unified housing strategy. That information will be very critical as we decide how to address housing for our city for the next generation, and just appreciate all of the hard work that you all are doing on that, and look forward to the work session in January. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. That finishes our business. Is there a motion to adjourn? Or adjourn?
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.